Hey, everybody, this is Heidi St. John. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have found me at my little corner of the internet. Today, I'm really excited to have Karen England on the show. Karen and I met when I was speaking down for one of my favorite churches, Calvary Chapel in Chino Hills. She is a culture warrior. She's been on the front lines of the battle for education in the United States. And today, we're going to tackle a difficult subject, which is, do we have this radical sex ed in the red states? A lot of you guys write to me and say, hey, this isn't in my school. This isn't in my neck of the woods. This is not happening in my conservative state. Karen knows a lot about this, and she's going to talk with me today about it. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. All right, you guys, so I'm glad that you've joined me. Thank you to everybody who's been leaving reviews for the show over at iTunes. I really appreciate it. I'm going to jump right into this today because it really is a thrill for me to have Karen here. I've been trying to get her on the show for quite a while to talk about this topic because school is in session now. And I know that a lot of you are sending your kids back to school, and a lot of people are saying, hey, I hear you what you're saying, Heidi, but I've got a great school. I've got a great administrator. My teacher is a Christian. And Karen moved from Southern California, which is where I met her now, and she's living in the beautiful state of Tennessee. And we were talking about, hey, what's the topic today? And she said, let's talk about whether or not this radical sex ed is in the red states. And the answer is a resounding yes. Karen England, welcome to the show.
Hey, Heidi, thank you. And it's so good to see you. I'm so glad I get to be on today.
I'm really happy that you're here. Let's jump right into this because this is a crisis. I mean, this is a crisis. I keep hearing the Democrats talk about the existential crisis of capitalists and the attack on freedom and all the things while President Biden is speaking what appears to be straight from hell, right? And the truth of the matter is, the crisis in our schools has reached a tipping point. What's going on in the red state of Tennessee?
Well, and absolutely. And I love the other thing they're constantly saying. They're like, oh, the Republicans are bringing this culture war. No, we're saying stop trying to indoctrinate our kids. I mean, they're the ones.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. It's just the rest of America is waking up that it's not just California. And so we're finding, I moved to Tennessee, and one of the disappointing things that I found is although you may have a conservative red state legislature, in California, we were the super minority. In Tennessee, we're the super majority. And so there are some good laws on the books, but local school districts aren't following them. And I hear every day, well, we're not doing that in our school district. Well, yes, you are, because 2 years ago, the Republicans in Tennessee thought it'd be a great idea to mandate sex ed on every single school district. So 2 years ago, when we were sounding the alarm all over, Republicans mandated it here in Tennessee because they thought their law was so great. Well, immediately Planned Parenthood hired a person to go to the school districts. And so what we're finding in Tennessee is that with this new curriculum, they're not even paying attention to state law. They're adhering to the standards, and therefore they're teaching everything they shouldn't be teaching. And so we've just recently done what we did in California, because I hear it too, Heidi. I constantly hear, not happening in my school. You know, my teacher goes to my church, or at our church, oh, the principal to the local high school goes there. Well, let me tell you, that principal either has his head in the sand, or I don't know what's going on, but the books in the classroom and in the library and the sex ed is going on. So we just did a round of FOIAs to all the Tennessee schools because, like in my local district, which is the reddest of red, They were approving all three of their curriculums that they put out for the public to view. Thank goodness my big thing is sex ed, because all three of them violated state law. And I knew that. And because I've been doing this for so long, I knew that they had ties to Planned Parenthood. You know, things the law says you can't have ties to Planned Parenthood. You can't do condom demonstrations. So I literally just rallied the troops and said, hey, here are the ties that this one has to Planned Parenthood. Here are the ties here. Here's this here. And they were forced to go back to the drawing board. And oddly enough, tonight they're going to present, the new curriculum they wrote. So I'm just waiting to force them back to the drawing board, because I'm sure they've left out, or they've put things in that are clear prohibitions on the law. And so, even in the red states, there's this push locally, even with really good state laws. And so it's happening. And I don't know of a school district where it's not happening. Oddly, and we've talked about furries and some of this crazy stuff that was going on in California. I'm floored is going on in my own neighborhood. So
you bet it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions because there's so much information. I'm taking notes so I can get back to you asking questions. First of all, you talked about submitting a FOIA request. For people who are listening who are like, what the heck is that? What is a FOIA and why does it matter?
Perfect. So a FOIA, which, by the way, great segue. Our organization has put together a template for every single state in the nation. And so anyone can go get the FOIA from our website and just fill in what you want. So a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act. And FOIA is what we kind of call it when you do it federally. But every state has a public records request and a way for you to access information from your government and your schools and your school board members and your teachers, administrators. They are government employees. And so you go and you FOIA, or you do whatever your state calls a public records request or a sunshine law, and there are documents that you need to ask for. So I'll give you an example. In Tennessee, I had to FOIA what they were, who all was on the committee. I FOIA'd memo of understandings or communications with Planned Parenthood. And so all the emails that would come, the communication between our board and employees and Planned Parenthood or some local Tennessee organizations. So that's how you really, really find out. I FOIA'd every school district in Tennessee to try and get my hands on what they call family life curriculum.
So how do you know that they're giving you the information? So you submit this FOIA and it goes to who?
Well, there's usually a person on staff there, but I just did one last week. They haven't responded. So now I'm sending it to the superintendent and every single board member saying, hey, I didn't hear a response. You need to get back to me on this. And so when you submit this, my point is, I know they're not going to tell the truth. For instance, when I went to look at the curriculum, she showed all of this stuff, and I started asking questions and found out, oh, well, there were some other books in another room. Did she want me to go get those? And I said, well, yes, absolutely. I want you to go get those. That's why I came here to see all of this.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I made it clear, because when she asked, hey, I have a 1 o'clock and a 2 o'clock, which would you like? And I said, I'd actually like both, 1 and 2 o'clock. I'm going to be there for a while. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. They love me at local school districts. So when you get this, I've received, let's see, Memphis. Memphis has gotten back to me. And it's amazing when you read how they talk about the law to parents. And when they're communicating to parents in emails or notices, they talk about how Tennessee is totally abstinence. We love and respect traditional marriage. But in the emails amongst themselves and to the organizations that they're buying curriculum from, they're very clear that, oh, well, we're just abstinence plus all of this other stuff. I mean, you see this total duplicity in what they're saying to parents, but what they're saying to each other and wanting to expose our kids to. And those are the things that you find out. And then you can start looking for more information. One of the things that recently we've done, as we're finding out what curriculums they're using, we're ordering the curriculum. Because here's the dirty little secret that we learned in California. When sex ed curriculum comes, not everything comes in that binder. That binder comes with either a flash drive with really controversial stuff on it, or the very first page is a download for the additional information. And so in California, we had to purchase about $5,000 worth of curriculum just to be able to get our hands on all of the updates, all of, the fifth grade puberty book doesn't look that controversial. But when you go to the downloads on, the additional curriculum that you're not going to get if you're a parent looking at that notebook, That's where the controversial stuff is. So there is quite a shell game that goes on with these organizations and companies that do this sex ed.
Wow. We're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Karen, before the break, you were talking about the shell game that parents are forced to play now. And really, I've said this a whole bunch on the show. A lot of people don't like me for it. It's inexcusable to me right now for Christian parents, people that understand what's happening, to play Russian roulette with their kids. Because for as much of a shell game as we're playing, and I found this out right here in my home state because I also started going several years ago. I was going to school board meetings like you were before it was cool, right? And going to these school board meetings, asking important questions, and you realize these people are lying on purpose. This is not, when you say it's a game, you're not joking, but the stakes are so high. The stakes are the hearts and minds of the next generation. And now there are people like me who have started homeschool resource centers. We just registered over 1,800 students at our center here in Vancouver, and we're looking to plant these centers all over the United States to give parents options. It's shocking to me that when a parent goes, there must be other options, they're not looking. They're still saying to me, oh, it's not in my state, it's not in my school, my principal's a Christian, my daughter's teacher's a wonderful human being. Well, newsflash, it doesn't matter. If your principal is a Christian, if your daughter's teacher is a wonderful human being, this stuff is mandated by law to be taught to children. I want to read something to you, Karen, that was sent to me this morning and just get your feedback on it. This is from Breitbart. Today, they're reporting this. Teachers are attending a conference to, quote, break the gender binary and interrogate what they call whiteness. A teacher organization called Northwest Teaching for Social Justice holds an annual conference where teachers attend sessions and learn how to break the gender binary, interrogate whiteness, and implement racial politics in math and science classes. The conferences, which are held in Portland and Seattle, bring together more than 1,200 teachers, teacher educators, and interested community members to seek to provide resources to promote equity and racial justice in the classroom. One session from the organization's 2021 conference was called Breaking the Binary, Exploring Ways to Deconstruct the Gender Binary in the Classroom. The description explained, quote, participants will engage in gender-based, student-friendly activities, including introducing gender as a social construct and exploring gender identities worldwide. This is an assault against our children. And to stick your head in the sand and pretend like your child's going to be the one kid that's not affected by this, or the one child that comes out of it going, you know what, my mom and dad were right. There are just two genders. I heard this my whole life. That's not the case. The Bible says that when our kids come to us, they come malleable, which is why they're being targeted. I want to find out from you, because you've done such an amazing phenomenon. You're like a hero to me, just the way you go into these schools and submit these requests. I'm not kidding. I'm so incredibly blessed and proud of what you're doing. When parents listen to you talk, it can be easy to get overwhelmed. What are some of the buzzwords that parents should be looking for when they go to look in their child's school? Because you just heard a teachers' conference say, we're trying to get this into science. We want this in math. We want this in geology. They're not just teaching sex ed in a vacuum. They're infusing this garbage into every aspect of your child's education. So what are some of the names? First of all, the buzzwords that parents should be looking for, and some of the names of the curricula that's out there right now that parents can go, oh my goodness, I think I heard that somewhere. And they know, run for your life, pull your kid out of school.
Okay, couple of things. Love those questions, Heidi. So the first thing parents really, really need to go home, ask your junior high and high school student if on their first day of school they were asked in any way, shape, or form about their preferred pronoun. Because here we are in Red, Tennessee, and all over, I was hearing from teachers and students getting in trouble for not using a preferred pronoun, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. The law is on that student and that teacher's side. So there are a lot of questions you can start to ask your kids, but I bet your listeners in red states, when they go ask their kids, one of them is going to talk about, our Spanish teacher wanted to know what my preferred pronoun was. So there's some questions that you need to ask, but it's really, really a lot of the buzzwords, equity, non-discrimination and bullying. So even though the law doesn't mandate these things in Tennessee, they're saying, hey, we can't be discriminatory, therefore we need to teach about all the different genders. Well, that is not what not being discriminatory means in the law in Tennessee. And so whenever they're talking about bullying or anti-bullying or non-discriminatory, equality, equity, those are all signs that this kind of thing is going on. And, your listeners and viewers can go in. Most information is online at this point from these school districts. The other thing is that handbook that comes home, it usually gives you a notice of all of this stuff. And I encourage parents, do not sign anything, read everything, and anything that gives away your parental rights, whether it's to privacy, with the tech policy or anything. Don't sign it. Refuse to sign, decline to sign. That's important.
It's so important for parents to realize, Jesus talked about this in his word, like in Luke 6:40, which is, I think, an entire, you could do a whole apologetic on Luke 6:40. Jesus is talking and he said, listen, when a student is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. That's what this is about. Your children are being subjugated right now to a worldview that is demonic and dangerous and is going to, I think, have a devastating effect long term on the culture, which is really the point, right? I said on my show yesterday, because we were talking about Title IX, I said, listen, if the Biden administration gets its way and it rewrites Title IX, all bets are off. Because now it doesn't matter if you live in a red state. It doesn't matter if you're in the reddest of the red corners of Oklahoma. This stuff's coming your way. And they're going to mandate it one way or another. Why do you think that there is such a push coming from the left? Because that's where it's coming from. It's certainly not coming from the conservatives. It's not coming. It's coming from the radical left, who really owns our education system. I believe it's a bigger crisis, what's happening in our education system, than the millions of illegal immigrants that are pouring across our southern border every day, because we are literally turning out kids who are going to be confused. They hate the country. They don't understand basic constructs of male and female anymore because we're messing with them. Why do you think there's such a push by we've got 2 minutes left from our teachers' unions especially, and in our schools, at the hearts of our kids?
Because they know that's how they're going to destroy our country. It's going to come from within. There's not going to be a force that comes at us directly. It's going to come from within. And Heidi, you talked about it. And for the listeners, for believers, you need to understand this is a spiritual battle, and it's one side or the other. And you're accountable for that. It's one side, one worldview or another. And nowhere should we be sending our, 7-year-olds in to fight a battle that even adults can't fight and shouldn't fight. And so we need to really internally pray about how on earth can we justify sending our kids knowing what we know? Because just like at that conference, they tell us what they want to do. They're upfront about what they want to do. Are we going to believe them and take them at their word?
That's exactly right. We've been saying that for several years. When Barack Obama said he wanted to fundamentally change the country, we should have believed him. And Yep. These people are saying we want to fundamentally shift the world as we know it. And we're going to use the next generation to push this into the culture, whether you like it or whether you don't. Your kids are being sacrificed right now on a demonic agenda, which is taking square aim at our children. You have an awesome website, Karen, called The Kitchen Table Activist. I want to talk to you about this more. Would you come back tomorrow and let's pick this conversation up again so we can empower parents? You actually have a voice if you'll just learn to use it. I love it if you come back tomorrow and we can pick this up again.
I'd love to. Thanks, Heidi.
You guys want more information about Karen England, you can go to thekitchentableactivist.com. I will link back to these things in the show notes. Just go to HeidiSt.John.com/podcast. You guys share this podcast. Get it out there on your social media. Ask the question. When you post the podcast, ask the question, is comprehensive sex education and gender ideology in conservative states? People need to start paying attention to this. I declare a national emergency, and we have got to start speaking out. My guest again today was Karen England. We're going to come back tomorrow and talk about how you can play a part in changing the narrative that's being pushed on your children. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll see you back here tomorrow at the intersection of faith and culture.